G'day guys. Alright, so I'm actually filming this on my phone today. Usually I film on my iPad, but I have lost it. It is definitely somewhere in my room, but I really need to clean it up at the moment and I just haven't been able to find it for a few days. So I've just decided, screw it, I will film on my phone. Alright, so basically, I've decided to give you guys the story of how I got diagnosed and a little bit of my story growing up with Aspergers syndrome. And that's because April is Autism Awareness Month and tomorrow, which is the 2nd, is actually National Autism Awareness Day. So I know I'm filming this a day early, but it's April, so why not? So I was officially diagnosed with Aspergers syndrome when I was 12 and a half, and that was back in 2009. And it was kind of a bit of an eye-opener for both my family and me to why I acted in certain ways and had some of the little quirks, shall we say. But it really helped us to understand, why I acted the way that I did. Because up until that point, it was always just I don't understand. None of us understood. So back when I was 5 years old, my parents had me tested for ADHD and the result was positive. But something that's interesting is it's actually a very common misdiagnosis for someone with Asperger's to have ADHD. But it is also possible for someone to have both. And hearing stories in that and some of my vague memories of when I was a kid, I think as a kid in particular, I probably did have both. I'm probably a rare instance where I did, but I'm really not 100%. So my parents went with that diagnosis, and the teachers obviously would know about that. And but I still didn't, the big thing was I didn't understand social cues that well. So naturally, I wasn't exactly 100% sure about emotions and this, that, and the other. And I didn't exactly know that walking around in your underwear wasn't a good thing. I do have a few stories with that, but I don't want to get into details. But basically, I did stupid things like that. And I didn't think anything of it because I was doing it in a way which I was like, oh, no. Because I knew walking around in your underwear was wrong, but I didn't know walking around in a camisole and boy short knickers was wrong. So there was a time when I did that and things like that. I've got a few stories like that that I remember and that I've been told, and they're all pretty embarrassing. But, it's the fact that I didn't realize, to someone who's not an Aspie and things like that, it probably comes off as second nature to not do that. But to me, it didn't click until I got told off. And that's actually kind of a little bit of a constant thing in my life. And I still actually have it every now and again to this day with some things where something doesn't click until I've been told off. So, as a kid, I did struggle socially. I didn't understand that, acting a particular way wasn't right. Something I used to do was, I actually had this one joke, because my parents actually did let me watch a couple of adult movies, and I'm not talking, pornography movies, I'm talking about comedies and that. And one of them, which is still one of my favourite movies to this day, is Kung Pao Into the Fist. And there was a joke in that which, until my parents explained it to me, I was actually going around the school and I was like year 1, year 2 at the time. And I didn't know it was wrong because I didn't know it was a dirty joke. And then after I found out it was a dirty joke, I actually changed the answer. And the joke was, what do you get when you cross an owl with a bungee cord? Now, I've actually told this to a few people that I know have a dirty mind, and they haven't been able to figure it out. But then when my parents explained it, they did it this way. What do you get when you get an owl with a bungee cord? And then when that explained, it clicked, it's a dick joke. And then I changed the answer to Yahoot because, our bungee cord jumping off a bridge. Why not? So basically, I had to be told what was wrong. And if it didn't automatically click, I got in trouble. And sometimes I'd been told to do things, so I had to do them that particular way. And there was one time in year 2 that I got into a bunch of shit because I'd had my hand up to go to the toilet for probably 2 minutes, and my first school was a Christian school, and this is right before break as well. So we were doing our regular prayer, and I'd had my hand up before this, and the teacher was ignoring me, so I ended up wetting myself, and I got into a bunch of shit for it. But that wasn't my fault. That was what I was conditioned to do. And there is another story which happened a few years later, which was the exact same thing, but I was in a dance class. But the teacher hadn't noticed, and I hadn't had my hand up that long. But again, it happened because I'd been conditioned to let the teacher know before that. But a big thing which happened all the way through till I was in year 4, I kept getting kept in because whenever we did like these little quick maths tests, or times tables tests, so there were 4 columns and we'd do 1 a day or something like that, or 1 a week, and I was always kept in because what I used to do was I used to go through all of the questions in the column and answer all of them in my head before going back because I didn't know, and I used to not be able to know how to clean my room. Like, that used to be my excuse for not doing it. Honestly, that, and I was scared that if someone tried to come and get me, that, they'd trip over and break the neck. But now I do know actually how to clean my room properly by myself, because I didn't know the process. And when I explained that to my teacher and everything, and he explained it to my parents, and they explained, no, you do it 1 at a time, and then eventually I started doing that, it really, really helped to get my speed up. So those are big things which, for my parents, I guess to any normal person, like, another thing was, I always had a problem with not sitting in the same spot. Like, this is probably something that probably wasn't helped by junior school because we got assigned desks. And in some of the higher levels of junior school, so like particularly in year 5, we actually got moved around. Like, for a few weeks we were in one spot. But the main reason we were moved around in year 5 was because we had this old-fashioned desk and everyone wanted to sit at it. So we all ended up moving around a bit for us to sit at that desk. But we still had our assigned places. So, I liked sitting on the same couch. I preferred to sit next to my mum at dinner, and my sister and I constantly had these going at each other moments, pre-diagnosis, by the way. And even afterwards, we still, after a while, we just came to this consensus, all right, fine, that's her spot, whatever. And, I'm not going to lie, this whole thing about me needing to sit in the same spot has gotten me into certain situations. When I was on the school bus, I preferred to sit in the same spot. And it got to the point when I was just like, fucking move or I will hit you. And there were a few kids, it actually got to the point, and this was in like the last year I was on the bus, I didn't want to have to deal with shit anymore, and I was on the brink of, this is the year I had my really bad psychological collapse and all that back in 2012. That was when I was in year 9. And I know some of this is going to sound like the maths all off, but here in Australia we have prep, which is kind of like getting you ready for school, but you're not in kindergarten anymore. And I repeated year 7 due to the fact that I got suspended for something that I didn't do, and I missed throughout the whole year I was suspended for various things, and I missed basically the equivalent of a term. So I repeated year 7. So that's why the math might seem a little bit off. And, so they basically would move and let me sit in my spot. And another thing is I like to sit, particularly on public transport, I much prefer to sit alone. And, I know this is a big problem for me because, but I try my best to sit in the same spot, which I'm usually pretty good at because, I have to be on a peak hour train when I go to uni. And it really, really sucks because, obviously, I get crowded with people, and I've had it twice where I haven't gotten a seat, and I basically been smushed right in with people, and I basically have to hold back a breakdown because it's just I can't cope with being splattered with people. And there are probably a lot of reasons for that, but that's the main one. But I know it's public transport and it's I like my spot, but it's I did get into a bit of strife with these little shits on the train, but they were doing it on purpose. And these kids are younger than me, right? And these were the kids. If you've seen my bullying video, I've mentioned the fact that there were these little shits on the train who were bugging me and caused me to scratch myself, so that I wouldn't kill them. And these are the little shits that constantly tried to take my spot. Obviously, I know it's not right that I'm just it's my spot, but it's hard once I've found that I basically found one that I have to go no, it just actually makes me uncomfortable. So yes, I am Sheldon in that aspect. And I've actually had friends of mine with Aspergers call me Sheldon. Everyone with autism or Aspergers is different. The big thing that I want to say is the big difference between autism and Asperger's, you have some social and communicative, I don't even know if that's a real word, abilities, but with autism, you're completely nonverbal. So, people who I know and who have met me and have gotten to know me, I tell them I'm an Aspie, and they're just what? No, you're not. I'm yes, I am. And like I said, that's why I have my little quirks, but, I'm older, I've grown up with them, I've learned to live with it. I've learned to control myself. I know that I can't always have control over the situation. I know that I can't always control my anxiety. That's probably the big thing that, gets me these days is the anxiety of it. I've broken down at school because things get too much. I have wanted to burn a project because it's not going the way I want it to. If I'm getting overwhelmed, I might just leave the class because I can't cope. That's the main thing that I'm learning to deal with these days is my anxiety. Because you might think going to uni and doing the course that I'm doing, it's not going to be that intense, but it's a lot more intense than you would think. Alright guys, so I am going to talk to you guys later. And I really, really hope you've enjoyed this video. I've had to really sum up everything because I have a 15-minute limit. So I've really got to make sure I got everything crammed in. And I do these in one take without a script, without editing. So, yeah. I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care.